And good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. And here we are on Tuesday morning. And by the way, I'm sure you've already noticed this. Yes, it's still up. And don't forget, my formal debate with Dr. Richard Carrier has been rescheduled for October the 26th. Due to the hurricanes in Florida, we had to reschedule. Derek Lambert, the host, moderator, sponsor, whatever you wish, lives in Florida. His house was supposedly right in the pathway. He called me a couple of days before the debate was supposed to take place, which was last Saturday, October the 12th, 2024, and they were leaving state, thankfully, and so we had to reschedule. And that debate is now rescheduled for October 26, 2024. You'll be able to watch that on YouTube. You'll be able to watch that. And it's on his site, Myth, M-Y-T-H, Vision, V-I-S-I-O-N, mythvision.com. And so you'll be able to watch the debate at your own leisure after it is done. You'll be able to watch it live on October the 26th. So be sure to be watching this, because Dr. Richard Carrier is going to affirm, insofar as the scriptures accurately record the words of Jesus, and of course that includes his apostles, his predictions of his coming and the end of the age failed. Now, folks, if you don't think this is important, if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, you could never, ever contemplate the possibility that Jesus lied or failed. And that's precisely what Dr. Carrier believes. So don't miss this debate. This is an incredible opportunity for the truth to confront error. And I want to say this, and I'll say this kindly and with respect to all my futurist friends. No futurist eschatology can defend the challenge of Christ against attacks such as that which will be leveled by Dr. Carrier. No futurist view can answer the challenge of Christ, which was, if I do not do the works which my Father has given me, do not believe me. If Jesus didn't come in judgment at the end of the age, at the time of the resurrection, in the first century, and in the events of the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70, if he didn't, then he lied or he failed. And I know futurists make all sorts of excuses. They make all sorts of attempts to deflect that charge. None of them work. Okay. And again, I say that with all due respect. I'm not trying to be harsh, not trying to be mean-spirited, or anything like that. I'm simply pointing out the truth, the reality. Okay, let's get back into it. I'm sharing with you the meanings of the Feast of Succot, the Feast of Harvest, the Feast of Ingathering, the Feast of the Joy of the Nations. They're just, many, many, many names associated with Succot. I'm simply using Succot for ease of reference and quickness of reference. So I've been sharing with you over the last several videos that the book of Revelation is built around the feast days. And I'm certainly not the first person who's ever seen that, recognized that, and shared that. This has been recognized by scholar after scholar after scholar. David Chilton taught this in his book, The Days of Vengeance. And by the way, he did that before he became a full preterist. But he did become a full preterist. Great guy. I corresponded with him often. Absolutely fantastic to engage in conversation with him. Anyway, Peter Leithart, in his 2-volume set on the book of Revelation, he brings the feast days to bear. Revelation 7, Revelation 11, Revelation 14. He understands this is feast day language. And then he abandons it in his discussion, of the millennium, and because he's still got to hang on to a futurist eschatology. So he abandons everything he said about the feast days and their fulfillment, God's fulfillment of God's promises to Israel when he comes to Revelation chapter 20. Scholar after scholar does this. Okay. So Sukkot is the Feast of Harvest. I've already shared with you that Revelation chapter 7 shares with us, teaches us that the 144,000 were holding their palm branches, which is Sukkot, indicative, symbolic of Sukkot. And then Revelation chapter 14 picks up with the 144,000. And not only do we find that it's 144,000 of the 12 tribes of Israel, which we've already learned was the righteous remnant of Old Covenant Israel, but in addition to that, there was a great multitude out of every nation, kindred, tongue, and tribe that was to be brought into the joys and the blessings of Sukkot. That's why Sukkot was called the joy of the nations, because the nations received the blessings of the sacrifices for all the nations. So here we have in Revelation chapter 14 a depiction of the harvest. Revelation chapter 14 and following, which I read yesterday. I won't take the time to read it again today, but notice you have the coming of the Son of Man on the clouds to reap, to engage in harvest. And as I said yesterday, you can't read that without thinking of Sukkot. It's completely anachronistic, ladies and gentlemen, to even think of the idea, oh, well, here, in Revelation 14 and following, we have a depiction of the end of time, the end of the Christian age. In the realization of Israel's feast days. Now, I want you to catch the power of what I'm about to say. Sukkot, while it would be for the blessings of the nations, while it anticipated and celebrated and foreshadowed the salvation of the nations, the harvest was to be at the end of Old Covenant Israel's covenant age. Now, how do I know that? Well, in Matthew chapter 13, Jesus told the parable of the sower. And he went out and he sowed seed. The adversary came and sowed bad seed, seed of tares. The workers of the vineyard, of the field, came to the master and said, "Master, we found tares. Should we go pluck them out?" And he said, "No, let them both grow together until the time of the harvest." This is Sukkot. No Jew, hearing or reading Matthew 13, would think of anything except Sukkot. They're not going to think about an end of time. They're not going to think about the end of the, quote, church age, unquote. They're going to be thinking about, as a matter of fact, the fulfillment of Daniel chapter 12. Because you see, in Daniel chapter 12, we have the promise of the harvest, i.e., the resurrection. Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. In verse 3, and verse 4, we have the prediction of the end of the age. The Suntelia Peros, the consummation of the age. The time when the righteous would shine forth in the kingdom as the stars and the firmament. So are you with me? Resurrection, end of the age, the righteous shining forth as the stars. And in verse 6, one angel asked another, when shall these things be? When shall all of these marvels be fulfilled? I had one, quote, commentator say, well, Preston, you're just misunderstanding. You're failing to understand that when the angel asked, when shall these things be? When shall all of these wonders be fulfilled? That he wasn't asking about when will the resurrection take place. He was talking about all of the other wonders, the Great Tribulation, the end of the age. Whoops, wait a minute. Yeah, end of the age. And so I responded, are you telling me that he was asking about just the Great Tribulation? Are you telling me that the resurrection is not the greatest of all, quote, wonders, unquote? According to Jesus in John chapter 5, 24 through 29, but especially verse 28 and 29, do not marvel at this, that is, the time had already arrived for the beginning of the resurrection, but the hour is coming in which all that are in the grave shall come forth, some to everlasting life, some to everlasting condemnation. So what was the greatest wonder? What was the greatest marvel from Jesus' perspective? Oh, it was the resurrection. Daniel chapter 12 predicted the resurrection, but in order to avoid the train that was coming at him, this individual, this minister, a pretty well-known minister in the churches of Christ, this minister said, well, he's asking about wonders, not about the rest of the stuff. Where do you learn this stuff? What kind of verbal gymnastics do you have to engage in? What kind of theological gymnastics do you have to engage in? This is beyond ridiculous, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean. But to say, well, when shall these things be fulfilled? That's referring to some of the things. But when shall these marvels be fulfilled? That's referring to some other stuff. Really? Anyway, one angel asked another, when shall these things be? When shall all these marvels take place? And the other angel lifted his right hand and his left hand and swore by him who lives forever and ever, it shall be times and a half time. That's the last half of the 70th week. But just set that aside for a moment and focus. And when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered, all of these things, not some of these things excluding the marvels. No, all of these things shall be fulfilled. Folks, ask yourself the question. Number one, who are Daniel's holy people? Number two, what was their power? Number three, when was or will that power be completely shattered? Well, point number one, Israel's people was Old Covenant Israel. Point number two, their only power was the Old Covenant, their covenant relationship with Yahweh. Number three, Israel's covenant relationship with Yahweh was completely shattered in AD 70. So that means that the time of the end, the suntalia and the telos, the peros, was going to be at the time of the destruction of Old Covenant Israel. And all this means, I'm out of time for this morning, But I hope you see the train coming on Daniel chapter 12, telling us that the resurrection, the time of the end of the age, when the righteous would shine forth in the kingdom, would be when the power of the holy people was completely shattered. Now, tomorrow, we're going right straight back to Matthew 13 and then right straight back to Revelation to tie all of these dots together that are dealing with Sukkot and the harvest and the end of the age and where and when that end of the age came. Now, listen, do yourself a favor, all right? Please go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com. Banner right up at the very top. If you ordered these two books, both of these books, obviously this book here deals with Sukkot. That's what it's about. Everything that I'm sharing with you here in these videos and a whole lot more is in this book. Well, since Sukkot has to do with the end of the age, it has to do with the end of the old law. And pardon me, this book deals with the end of the law. And yes, I discuss Daniel 12, and yes, I discuss Revelation 14, and yes, I discuss Revelation 21 and 22. Okay? Go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com, click the banner up top, order the two books, total delivered price $39.95 or $39.50, something like that, and you're going to save over $20 over what you would pay if you purchased these separately and independently and paid shipping on each one of them. Do yourself a favor, order those two books on special for the rest of October 2024, U.S. orders only. Okay, back to it in the morning. On the flip side, I'll see you there.